debt can only be anchored in the appropriations development. There's no other avenue that Parliament anchors the debt of this nation. It is only for development, and it is in the appropriations bill development. So we went through the entire figures from 2013 to date. And we came up with the chart you are now seeing as, no, I think go to the next. Next. Yes. The appropriations as was done over the last, from 2014 to, as we said, March last year. The appropriations, as you can see in column 2, are the years, very clearly. First term of Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta and the second term. Approved development expenditure, by estimates, was done a total of 2.6 trillion in the first term, and as you can see in the bottom, a total of 2.6 again in the second term. Amount financed by tax was 1.7 and 1.6 in the second term. In the last column, we have the amount financed by debt, what Parliament approved as debt to be taken. That amount is 969 billion in the first term and 1 trillion in the second term. In other words, that Parliament authorized a total debt of 2 trillion over the 2 terms of Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta in the appropriations.
Chair, sorry, I just want to get a clarification. I want him to confirm that these amounts as captured, for example, let's take 2021-2022, 668. I want him to confirm that does that amount include, one, what we call the CFS expenditures? Does it include the allocation to the counties? Does it include the recurrent expenditure? Or it only captures the development expenditure? Because I think that is a major point of departure.
And maybe before Jim, you answer to that, I want your legal team to take the Constitution and go to 221, Article 221. I want the lawyers to help us. If you go to Article 221, 7, and that's why we have a problem with the presentation. It says, the appropriation bill mentioned in clause 6 shall not include expenditures that are charged on the consolidated fund by this Constitution and an Act of Parliament. If you look at the CFS expenditures, the first charge is debt repayment, as you said earlier, which means when you look at the Appropriation Act, you are not likely to find debt repayment in that act. So maybe your lawyers can now help us, because if that is the position, then it means from the word go, this presentation is grounded on the wrong propositions.
Bwana Chairman, the appropriations bill recurrent charges debt payments. All debt payments are in the appropriations recurrent. So which appropriations bill are you talking about?
This is the law.
Because 7 says, shall not be.
Yeah, I think to cure that, Mr. Wanjigi.
You see, here it says, to read 7 again, the appropriations bill mentioned in clause 6, which is national government expenditure, all these things, whatever, withdraw from the CFS, shall not include expenditures that are charged on the CF by this Constitutional Act of Parliament. Now, the appropriations bill recurrent charges all of that. It charges all of it. All the payments of debt are in recurrent appropriations bill.
Chair, without
no, but they are in appropriations recurrent bill.
Without sounding too mathematical, let us take the figure of 668.
Yes.
Now, out of that figure, tell us how much money was transferred to the counties, because it is inclusive.
Yes.
tell us how much of that money was used to repay debt.
Yes.
Tell us how much of that money was used to repay pensions.
Now you're talking about recurrent expenditure. When you talk about recurrent, there are two bills that come to Parliament. There's the Appropriations Bill Development and Appropriations Bill Recurrent. Two bills. The one that is over there is the Appropriations Bill Development, where debt is charged. The Appropriations Bill Recurrent has got all that expenditure. All counties, all debt, any CFS is in appropriations recurrent. It's a recurrent expenditure. We are paying for it. It is there. So there are two bills, please. Appropriations Bill Development and Appropriations Bill Recurrent. This is development. No, there are two bills. Yes, but there are two sections. Call it two sections then. Call it two sections. What I have put up there are Appropriations Bill Development, where debt is supposed to be charged according to the Constitution, because debt only goes for development. It does not go for recurrent expenditure. So debt is supposed to be charged here. Appropriations Recurrent has got all that expenditure you're talking about. It has CFS, it has counties, it has all external and domestic debt payments are in Appropriations Recurrent.
And I called the press conference on the 12th of January. I ended by saying that this matter, if left unchecked, can plunge this country into chaos and anarchy, and called for a national dialogue, or indeed a commission of inquiry. I said to the government, I'm not aware of any policy that supports abductions and extrajudicial killings. And it is not right that parents like these ones and relatives can stay for periods in excess of 40 days looking for their loved young ones. And we sit somewhere claiming that we are discussing matters about the economy of this country. Economy for who? If we are killing them, abducting and killing the young ones, so who are you doing the economy for? This matter needs to be taken with the seriousness that it deserves.
Bishop, kama nikikosea kwa sababu mimi si Mkristo kama hawa kina Cheruiyot, utanikosoa. Maandiko yanasema moto mkali zaidi kule Jehanam umetengewa watu ambao wanaona ndugu zao wakipotea na wanapiga makofi wanasema uko sawa. Mheshimiwa Tomo Jenda, mimi nasikia watu wakisema hapa mambo wanataka wakupee sijui nini. Azma yako ya kisiasa itatimia tu iwapo utakuwa ndani ya chama cha ODM. Hawa wakora wanakudanganya ati sijui ingie kwa serikali, sijui uende wapi, wanataka uanguke kura 2027. Na kwa sababu mama yako yuko hapa, kwa heshima ya mama yako, acha nikuwe rafiki wako wa kweli. Nikuambie Ojenda, ukikanyaga nje ya ODM, kiti ya Kisumu hakuna mahali unaona. Niseme nisiseme, tuambiane ukweli. Bishop, umesema hapa hii hewa tunavuta ni bure, lakini vile hawa watu ya tangatanga wanaendelea, hii hewa haitakuwa bure kila siku. Iko hapa siku mbele tutakuja kuwekewa ushuru ya kupumua, na kwa sababu bado ni bure, wacha nitumie hewa yangu ya bure kabla Zakayo anifikie. Mimi nataka niseme, nilisikia MC mmoja hapa akisema ati ametuona tumeingia pamoja na kina Cheruiyot, ati tuko pamoja. Hatuko pamoja. Sisi watu ya ODM tuliangalia vitu inafanyika na mandege hii Kenya, tukaambiwa Sifuna, ukiingia ndege hakikisha kuna mtu ya UDA pia ameingia hiyo ndege. Ndio kama kuna hasara, kama kuna hasara itapatikana, ODM ipoteze, UDA ipoteze, tutoke draw. Ndio maana nimekuja na Cheruiyot, hatuko pamoja. Mtu asikudanganye bwana. Niseme nisiseme, Mweo Ochanda, nimekuangalia hapa mbele ukizungumza nikashangaa kama huu ni ule Ochanda nilikuwa naona chungwa hausakilia juu ya tiketi ya chama cha ODM. Sikutambui tena ndugu yangu, wewe umekuwa mtu tofauti sana.
We have met here before, and the previous session we actually met in the Kenya School of Monetary Studies on the initiation of this process of budget making. And this process should not be a ritual. It should be an objective, practical process. Because most of what then happens in the year, in the culmination of the CS giving the highlights in the National Assembly, and also the assent of the appropriations bill by the President, the beginning of that journey is actually today. Many times we get people coming at the wee hours of the night, in quotes, in the budget making process to come to canvass for resources. Unfortunately, it's always very late, because we need to take this process with the weight it deserves, especially at the beginning, other than coming when the process is almost complete, when we get a lot of phone calls with the PS and of course with the CS, with the accounting officers canvassing for resources. But I also want to give just a few pointers. One, I live in Kenya, yes, and we see that we deserve to do more as leaders, and especially insofar as the Kenyan people are concerned. And that is what we should do more. But looking back, many times it is not fair for us to engulf ourselves with only doom and gloom, because Kenya has been doing well insofar as especially parameters of economies are concerned. Because looking at Kenya, and especially the year that is already complete, that is 2023 calendar year, our GDP grew by a modest 5.6%. Looking globally, Kenya was ranking among the 25th fastest growing economies in the world. And I don't think that is a bad thing, it is a good thing. Secondly, the other parameter, if you look at our currency, and especially for the last 1 year, that is the calendar year, and even within this year alone, within this year we have seen our currency gaining close to 20% against the greenback or the US dollar, against the local currencies even more or better. And therefore I think on that front also, Kenya is not doing so badly. On the other front of inflation, where we measure now the real cost of living, even before I go to the jargons, if you look at the cost of unga, which is our staple food here in Kenya, that is ugali, or maize, githeri, where I come from, it is the same plant, or it's the same thing. Our unga has come down by almost 50%. And I also think that is a good thing. But even in terms of jargons, our inflation in the month of July was around 4.3%. Our inflation last month, which just closed the month of August, was 4.4%. And our benchmark as Kenya in terms of inflation is 5%. And of course with a band of 2.5% either way. And therefore, we are actually dealing with the lower band of our inflation because it is below 5%. In fact, if we continue getting the kind of progress we are getting, Waziri, you may now start dealing with a bigger problem of deflation probably in future. And therefore, I'm just trying to say that even when there is a push for us to do better, which is very important, we also have to celebrate that Kenya is becoming a very progressive economy, has come of age, and I'm saying so with humility, and especially based on empirical figures, which are generated here internally, but also acceptable globally by other institutions. The other thing I would just want to say around those figures is that probably what we may need to look at as we look forward is that I should not be coming here as budget chair to convince Kenyans how the economy is growing. It is the Kenyan people who should be telling me the economy is growing. And therefore that calls upon us, all of us in this hall, that all the policies that we make must advance an egalitarian society, must promote equality and equity, so that even as the economy grows, it should not be growing in such a forum. It should be growing in the pockets of the Kenyan people, and I think that is a component of making sure our resources are well distributed. The other thing is about our budget, because that is why we are meeting here. And we can only deal with our budget now with the pointer of the budget we are already implementing of 23-24, because that is the budget we are implementing. And I'd want all of us to look at this issue very, very objectively. The budget we are implementing is a budget of 3.88 trillion shillings. And I'd want us to go together so that the solution may maybe partly come out of this hall. Out of the budget of 3.8 trillion, and that is after the fall of the finance bill, and therefore what followed was the supplementary one.
Na uliza watu wa Bumula, mnaturuhusu tufagie watu watuondoke? Kama mnaturuhusu baba mikono tuende, kama mnaturuhusu tuwafagie waende. Ruto akienda nyumbani, unaenda na vikaragosi wako. Tuanze afresh. Hakuna wakati, we are the second largest tribe in the republic na hatujai onja uongozi wa taifa. Kwa sababu wale tumeweka mbele ni maziwa lala. Na tukiongea wanatuwekea vijana wanipige. Kama kuna kijana hapa ametumwa na mtu kunipiga, utapata risasi kwa mataka, utaamini. Hapa sio mchezo bwana. Si ndio hiyo? Mimi si mtu wa kutishwa. Sasa ukitumwa jitayarishe pia na wewe. Ukipata yako kwa matako, enda nyumbani upoe nayo. Kwa sababu wananchi wameamua. Si mmeamua? Haya, weka mkono tuone kama umeamua. Mko tayari? Twende mbele. Tusafishe Western. Mlembe iende State House.
Hawa ni baadhi tu ya viongozi ambao kusema kweli wana msimamo, hawatetemeshwi na chochote. So sijui una maoni gani kuhusiana na hawa viongozi kuwa katika yale mpangilio ya Fred Matiangi wapo atakuwa rais wa Jamhuri wa Kenya. So sijui una maoni gani, niachie hapo kwenye comment section. Kama hujasubscribe na kuomba uweze kusubscribe, finya notification bell ndio wakati wote tunapata habari kama huu unakuwa mtu wa kwanza kuipata. Hadi wakati mwingine, nakutakia mchana mwema. Asante sana kwa wakati wako.